Yeah, I guess it's a long-standing history for us as tangata whenua here in Tauranga Moana. We've got an intimate understanding of how we came to be here.
Back in the home country, everyone was fighting. The food source was scarce. That really put Māori in a space where we had to leave. So the first voyage happened. They kept on travelling for days, and then they got to this place here, as we know as Aotearoa.
When people arrive in a new country and they start to explore the country, we use our traditional knowledge to set us forward.
So when they turned into our harbour, they stopped the waka at a place called Tirikala. It's on the outer side of Maua. Tamati Ariki Nui did the karakia and the placing of the mauri of his people, his waka, of the Takitimu people. And then him and the tohunga climbed Maua and they built 2 altars. Then they came down and then they started to occupy Te Papa. So life goes on, and then you had so many other tribes wanting this place as well. We forever battled to be here.
Often conflicts for tangata whenua were resolved with relationships and marriages. So we celebrate their whakapapa because those people are connected now. Since times past, really, we've got a whole lot of people that have come here for their own reasons. The early contact was traders, and by and large, all the reports say that trade used to go pretty well. It wasn't long before the missionaries came.
The Anglican Church came here to Tauranga and befriended our whānau, our people, our elders of the day. And through that relationship, land was betrothed to the church.
The Church Missionary Society was an Anglican mission agency that first arrived in New Zealand in 1814. One of the places they came to was Tauranga Moana. A man called Archdeacon Brown was sent here with his wife Charlotte.
So he came here in 1835. He became quite fluent in Te Reo Māori. He managed to acquire a piece of land that was about 30 acres where he could build a little settlement there.
It was the residence of Brown and his family. It was a school. It was also a training centre for Māori. And for the first few years, it really was a successful bicultural living arrangement.
Our people learnt a lot from Archdeacon Brown other than just religion. They learned carpentering with him, midwifery practices, and also all the modern tools that he had that helped Māori people right throughout the country.
3 years later, in 1838, my ancestors then gifted him. They gifted him the 30 acres, and then they gifted him a further 1,000 acres, further right back up the peninsula.
I think an obvious question is, why did the Mission Society purchase 1,333 acres, way beyond what its needs were?
Is that they could also see that if they didn't do something, pretty soon they'd have none left, the Māori, that is. So all the lands that the mission had, they held under a trust, right?
They committed to be the kaitiaki or the overseers of this land in perpetuity on behalf of Māori, and that they were here to secure Māori interests.
In the late 50s, they started setting up a Māori king. And one of the things that he did was to put a ban on the sale of any further land because they could see that they were gradually losing it.
The missionaries who up till that time would be seen to be pro-Māori couldn't really understand the reasons for the development of kingitanga. And it was at that time that a kind of a division happened.
A movement came from Britain individuals were looking at using Aotearoa as a means of colonising and settling.
The new government had its eyes on Tauranga for a settlement for two reasons. One, because it was this ideal harbour. The other thing was a strategic military arrangement.
You know, once you see gunships and artillery and military arriving, I think the vibe, the ahua of the place would have changed. And I think that's reflected in the leadership who at that time decided, well, we've got to make a stand, otherwise this is just going to become an overwhelming force.
Even though Brown was supportive of General Crown policy, it's not right to say he was supportive of the Crown's presence and its troops right here on the Elms. And he iterated that back to the Crown. Brown could see what was ahead and what was likely to happen.
So I think that wasn't very easy for him. I don't think it sit well with him, being the missionary, trying to bring Christianity to Maori people. And these soldiers over here with General Cameron, now they're going to be killing all of them. So he can't go stand with the Maori people. So he has to stand with General Cameron. So we think that was very hard for him to be doing that.
He actually talks about it being caught between the devil and the deep blue sea. He had the government on one hand, and he had what he owed to his local parishioners on the other, and he was struggling to find the way forward.
There was a lot of confiscation, there was a lot of sort of marginalisation that was eroding away the rights of tangata whenua, and I think, you know, that just built up over time.
As time went on, the military needed space, and then the deals were done between the church and the military, and so it changed hands.
The Church Missionary Society, their land got taken off them as well. The land went from them to the Crown and then to various other owners. The Crown sold it off more or less.
You had our Tamihana family who was living down on the corner of Spring Street. They were moved off. My grandmother's brother had their little settlement by the Catholic Church. They were moved off. And then you had the Piahana whānau that was up on the top here overlooking the estuary. They were moved off. This was not our place anymore. It had been confiscated.
My family was one of the last two families to leave the Te Papa lands. When we were told to leave the township, there were no basic materials to build or to use when we were shifted. We had to find whatever was to be found by ourselves. The buildings were of part timber planks, corrugated iron, no floorboards, just dirt covered with potato sacks. Our home consisted of 3 rooms, one for the uncles, one for the aunties, myself and Mum, and the other room was a communal kitchen and dining room.
I recall a story my dad told me one day, you know, how sad it was for my grandmother, who constantly cried, you know, cried and cried. Every night she would cry because of what was happening to the family, what was happening to the bigger whānau in terms of the whole land, confiscations, the land taken away from them. And so, you know, it leaves a wound in us as a people.
So here we have, I think, a cultural clash. From a Western perspective, we have individualised title that is owned and controlled by an individual. From what I understand, from a Te Ao Māori perspective, what took place was permission for the Church Missionary Society to come and to establish the kind of things that they committed themselves to, but there was never a sense that Māori would be alienated completely from both their occupation and their interests in the land, so that they would maintain a sense of mana in terms of the land, but also that the Church Missionary Society would be the kaitiaki, or the ones who would look after and have use of the land. From the beginning, we can see that we have these two worldviews that have a difference in their foundation and a different way of seeing things, and that's, you know, one of the difficulties we've got to work through.
Land in general, whenua in general, is valuable from a Māori perspective. Why is that? It goes back to our earliest stories, to our earliest histories. It talks of the division of the heavens and earth. And then, of course, that was the genesis or the origin story, which traces our whakapapa or genealogy, which brings us here today. And this is, I guess, a perspective on the way that Māori feel so entwined and gathered with the land, with the sea and the environment in general.
We have a duty to our taiao, to our environment. We have a duty to our ocean. We have a duty to the land. We have a duty to our people. If we don't do things properly here now, they'll be gone in the future. That's definitely what we don't want as mana whenua and as Māori.
Even before the transference of the land, they promised land of Tauranga to the militia, to the soldiers, and they said, you know, if you fight for us, we will give you sections of land. And they had no legal right to do that, but that was the promise already.
And we, being the hapu within it, we lost our 100% of our lands.
The government of the time under Sir George Grey wanted more land, and there were some of us here who objected to that, and there were a few skirmishes and scuffles, and then it got out of hand, I guess, and outright war was declared.